know that Reeva Steenkamp's family have said that they're willing to take part in a victim-offender dialogue with Oscar Pistorius as part of his parole process. Pistorius shot and killed Steenkamp on Valentine's Day in 2013. He has maintained he had mistook her for a burglar. News 24 senior legal journalist Karyn Maughan joins me now live. Karyn, a very good afternoon to you. Thanks indeed for your time. So Karyn, Oscar Pistorius was only due to be eligible for parole, I think, in March 2023. There seems to have been some confusion over when he was actually eligible for parole. Why is that?
Griselda, essentially what happened was the two occasions on which the Supreme Court of Appeal corrected its ruling on Oscar Pistorius' sentence. This has been a quite involved and complicated case. He was initially convicted of culpable homicide. The state appealed it. He was then convicted of murder. He was sentenced, subsequently sentenced by Judge Thokozile Masipa. The state then also appealing that sentence, which was 6 years, saying it was shockingly lenient. The appeal court agreeing with the state again, imposing a 15-year sentence, but then deducting the time that he'd served for culpable homicide. But the complication ensued about when that sentence came into effect. Initially, the court correcting its judgment and saying it came into effect from the time that he was sentenced for murder. It subsequently corrected it to say that it's come into effect from the time that he was convicted of culpable homicide. And that, of course, means that he is now eligible for parole because he has served half his sentence.
Karyn, the Steenkamps indicating that they're willing to meet with Pistorius. How important is that meeting to his chances of getting parole?
It's quite significant. We know that the department, when they spoke to us, said that it was really this, this issue of restorative justice, of victim engagement, was a very pivotal aspect to, an inmate potentially being given parole. It's going to ultimately be a mechanism by which the Correctional Services Department, the Parole Board, evaluates whether he has reformed, he has shown remorse, and of course the attitude of the Steenkamps to his release on parole will be one of the issues that's considered. So ultimately, if they are supportive and not vocally opposing or oppositional towards that, it will assist him in potentially being released on parole.
Karyn, what are the processes that are involved in a parole hearing? Because what we're also hearing from the Steenkamps lawyers is that the process itself of parole seemed to have been going ahead without the involvement of the Steenkamp family, and somewhere it had been stopped.
Well, what essentially happened was that Pistorius was called to was made aware that there would be a parole hearing on the 27th or the 29th of October. My understanding is that his lawyer then contacted the Steenkamps through their lawyer to alert them as to what was happening. Subsequent to that, Correctional Services officials contacted them and said that they wanted to have a meeting, which, as we would understand, was quite traumatic for them because, as you've just pointed out, it was initially thought that he was only eligible in March 2023. Subsequent to that, they cancelled that meeting, and the lawyers for the Steenkamps saying that they were obviously quite traumatized by that. So, there has been a bit of a haphazard nature to this, which is very unfortunate. But in the ideal set of circumstances, there are a number of reports that are considered from a psychologist, from a social worker, from the unit manager where Oscar Pistorius has been imprisoned, from a case management committee who looks at all the, whether his sentencing plan, the courses that he's participated in. And then, of course, this victim-offender dialogue is also a pivotal aspect of the process of determining whether he can and should be released on parole. So unfortunately, whatever the case is, whether it's a high-profile case or not, one would hope that there would be open and transparent and empathetic communication. Unfortunately, at the beginning of this process, that does not seem to have happened for the Steenkamps. However, the Department of Correctional Services assuring us that indeed they will be consulted, their inputs will be sought, and arrangements are being made for Pistorius potentially to be transferred to a prison in the Eastern Cape so that he can meet with the Steenkamps in the province that they're from and engage with them in this victim-offender dialogue.
Do we know approximately how long this process takes, Karyn?
We don't. I mean, the reports are really important, so we don't know at this stage whether those reports have been finalized. Obviously, moving Pistorius from Pretoria at Atteridgeville Prison, where he's been an inmate for the last few years, that will require support and qualification from the Correctional Services Department. It is only once that offender dialogue has taken place that he can then go through a parole board hearing. And at that stage, those reports should be finalized, but we don't know if that has in fact happened. Privately, his lawyer has said that he was willing to participate in all the processes that are required, but doesn't want to be drawn on any aspect of that victim-offender dialogue. Neither do the Steenkamps. They've said quite categorically through their lawyers that they don't want to discuss their attitude towards Pistorius' parole. The law must take its course. They want to participate in this process, and they want the opportunity to face him face-to-face for the first time since his trial, and certainly, as far as I'm concerned, the first time in terms of actually having a discussion with him about the shooting of their daughter, for which he was found responsible and which was ultimately found by the SCA to be a murder. So it is going to be a significant interaction, one that could make or break his opportunity to potentially get parole. And I'm sure, the department hopefully will conduct that in an appropriate and empathetic manner.
Karyn Maughan, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining us here on The Full View. We take a short break.